Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be testing out yet another pilot series for the channel. And the title of this pilot series is called Rated. And in this series, I look at great fighters, former champions, Hall of Famers, and such, and I look at their current or how I feel about their current public perception and determine whether I feel fans overrate this fighter, underrate this fighter, or they're accurate in their perception of this fighter. So it's not a matter of if the fighter is good or bad or anything like that. All the fighters that will potentially be featured in this potential series are at the very least good, because you go on there with mentioning like legends, Hall of Famers, champions, and such like that. So it's not me just mentioning a fighter that was in the UFC and went 1-10 or anything like that, or 500. Well, it could be 500. They were like a former champion. They just fought, came to the UFC and just fought champions after champions after champions, and grace at this weight class and grace at that weight class. But again, it's fighters that reach the pinnacle of the sport, accomplished big things. So at the very least, they are good. So again, it's not a matter of good, great, or anything like that. It's a matter of if fans perceive them as, perception of them is, pretty much, is it accurate? Are they overrating them, underrating them, or are they accurate in their rating of this or perception of this fighter? So yeah, let's get into it. This edition of Rated will be Rated Chuck Liddell. So let's get into it. So Chuck Liddell is the original sprawl and brawler. And that term might really be a ding of old, because everybody wants to be a mixed martial artist these days, even though some fighters are purely strikers. We're definitely seeing like a kickboxer resurgence type of thing, like these kickboxers who know how to stand up and, they got some jiu-jitsu chops and whatnot, but mostly they just want to stand up and they want to strike, wear out these wrestlers. So it's still around, but the term is definitely not used as much anymore. People definitely will be preferred as like technical strikers and stuff. A sprawl and brawler don't mean you had to be this sprawl and this swing for the fences. And I don't think Chuck Liddell was a fighter who just swung for the fences. He might have some moments, but he was a pretty solid technical striker in his era. So yeah, the term just really means you're using your wrestling to keep the fight standing. Chuck Liddell was a guy who had a background in both wrestling, karate, and Kempo karate, and he used his wrestling background to keep the fight standing. He definitely could use it offensively. He did at times, but primarily he used it to keep the fight standing and knock out wrestlers and knock out other strikers. So he was really the guy who really coined the term, and really the guy who lived by that term and really exemplified that term. And to this day, he's really like the golden standard for sprawling and brawling. Even after all these years and all these fighters, all these other great fighters who have come along, he's still like the golden example of sprawling and brawling. So give the man his feathers for that. He has accomplished a lot. And Chuck Liddell is a former UFC light heavyweight champion, 4-time defending that belt, 4 title defenses. So by winning the belt, he puts himself in a small percentile. Less than 1% of fighters that join the UFC become champions, and he became a champion. And on top of that, few fighters who win the belt defended, and he defended it 4 times. So not once, but 4 times. So a lot of defenses, won the belt, and even to this day, it's very few fighters who have more than 4 defenses. So he ranks high in defenses still, and he has a lot of accomplishments. So 4 title defenses, won the belt, and then on top of winning the belt, he has a lot of good wins underneath his belt, a lot of great wins underneath his belt. 7 of them being against UFC champions. 5 different names, 7 wins. 2 wins over Randy Couture, 2 wins over Tito Ortiz, a win over Murillo Bustamante, a win over Vitor Belfort, and a win over Kevin Randleman. I'm just going to kind of focus on like 3 of those wins. And also he has 2 other wins, but he has more than just those other 2, but he has probably like 4 or 5 more, but I'm just going to mention like 2 of those ones. He got a win over Wanley Silva, and he has a knockout win over Alistair Overeem in Pride. So a lot of good wins underneath his belt. And yeah, let's focus on about 2 or 3 of them. You got Randy Couture, the first 2-division champion in UFC history. So he was a heavyweight champion and a light heavyweight champion. Not simultaneously. He was never a champ, but he was the first 2-division champion in UFC history. At the highest level, he was a 2-division champion. Again, at heavyweight and light heavyweight. And at both weight classes, he was a multiple-time champion. Like, he won the belt, lost it, won it again. I think he was a champion like 3 times at heavyweight and twice at light heavyweight. For some solid guys, beat some solid guys at both weight classes. And on top of that, he is the oldest champion in UFC history. I think at like 43 or 44. So again, just crazy accolades. And Chuck Liddell was able to beat him not once but twice, and he stopped him twice. So that's a real big feather in his cap. And I think Randy Couture in his own right, still to this day, should be ranked really at the very least in the top 20 all-time pound for pound. And again, Chuck Liddell beat him twice at his best, stopped him twice at his best. Then you got Tito Ortiz, who has the second most defenses in light heavyweight history, UFC light heavyweight history at 5. And that was one of the best rivalries in UFC history. And really like the first true rivalry in really MMA history, Tito versus Chuck Liddell. And they fought twice in their primes, and Chuck beat Tito twice in their prime. Stopped him twice in their prime, just like he stopped Randy Couture twice in their prime. So big win, big feather in his cap yet again for Chuck Liddell. And Tito Ortiz was definitely a beast in his prime and, you know, a deserving champion at that time. You know, he probably ducked Chuck a couple more years than he should have, but the fight happened and Chuck stopped Tito twice. So, or the fights happened and Chuck stopped Tito twice. So, yet another feather. You know, Vitor Belfort, the youngest champion in MMA history at 18 years old, won like one of the last UFC tournament style tournaments. Like when UFC was still tournament style, he won one of the last of those tournaments at 18 years old, running through all these grown men, and became a champion. And then he went on to become an undisputed champion by beating Randy Couture, not in the way that he would want, but a win is a win. He became an undisputed champion, and once a champion, always a champion. And even outside of being a champion, he was able to have like 10 different careers, 20 different forms, and he has racked up a lot of good wins over legends and great fighters and future Hall of Famers and current Hall of Famers. So Vitor Belfort definitely a true legend and a legend's legend. So yet another big feather in his cap. Murilo Bustamante, you know, was a solid fighter in his era. I think he went on to win the middleweight belt, defend it once, and, you know, throughout his career fought solid guys. And even to this day, Murilo Bustamante is still training a lot of guys that are coming to you. So he might not be their main trainers, but still a very legit guy, solid BJJ, you know, just a beast for his era. You know, was one of the best guys at that time and very underrated in his own right. So Bustamante, a good win. Kevin Randleman was a specimen, one of the first UFC heavyweight champions. Yeah, one of the first UFC heavyweight champions, and he was able to stop him. And Kevin Randleman had, you know, might have a 500 record, but he definitely had some big highs, some big lows, and that was the era when everybody fought everyone. So when he was the champion, he was the best out there when he was champion. So big win for another big win for Chuck Liddell. So Chuck Liddell has had a long storied career, accomplished a lot of things. And as far as public perception of Chuck Liddell, I feel like with a lot of fighters from that era, you know, like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz, and the people that, well, Frank Shamrock kind of in there at some points and whatnot, maybe a little bit before, whatnot. But yeah, you know, you kind of look at those people that's, I guess, pre-2008 or weren't necessarily at their peaks in 2008. And even then, a lot of fighters that were even in 2010, like, you know, kind of get forgotten about. They kind of pushed them in the same category you would put a Royce Gracie. But that's where I feel like the issue with the public perception of them. And also people, you know, really a lot of people now in MMA that are fans, or a lot of the fans of MMA currently, are guys that have joined into MMA or got into MMA after Conor McGregor. So they really don't even know who the guy is. And they probably just look at highlights. Oh, he got knocked out by this guy who's a has-been now. And this guy who's a has-been now. Oh, he fought Tito Ortiz again when he was like 50 years old and Tito Ortiz knocked him out. That's like, all I know is the guys get knocked out, but they don't really look at the wins he has. And they just kind of just jumped to like, oh, the guys have gotten so much better. So, and he was good because the era just sucked and now everybody got better. But that was the era very much when, you know, it was a full mixed martial art. Like, the game has gotten better, but has it really got that much better when you see guys like Khabib, who's just pretty much like a lightweight version, well, like not even a lightweight version. Like, if Matt Hughes was modern and he could cut to lightweight, that would be what Khabib is. Or Dricus du Plessis, if you just put him in a black and white film and put him in a Vale Tudo ring, you were like, oh, this look like an old school fighter. You wouldn't even say, oh, that's like some modern guy fighting, you know, like, you know, a guy that's supposed to be from 2024 and is a reigning champion now. You would look at him like as probably like a journeyman then, but he's a champion now. And Diego Sanchez, a lot of points, was, you know, able to make it to a belt. And, you know, like, I'm not saying these guys are bad or anything, but it's just that unconventional styles and techniques still, you know, fighters with like styles like that still can become champions. And Jerry Prohaska is unorthodox as he is and whatnot. And I think prime I think Chuck Liddell would knock out Jerry Prohaska. I think prime he would knock out Dricus du Plessis. So a lot of guys that are champion and doing well still in this era, guys and women are doing well in this era, are people I feel like it's not that big an evolution as people try to make it seem. And just because it evolved and fighters in general got better, don't mean that old stuff are, the basics are the simplistic stuff doesn't still work. So yeah, I feel Chuck Liddell could still thrive there, especially, if he was born in this era, with his attributes and he just evolved to the time, obviously that would help him a lot. But I think even as he was prime, I think he could still beat a lot of guys. Maybe not John Jones when he was around at light heavyweight, but with the current crop of people, I think he could do pretty well. And I think he could definitely win. I think he probably have an okay chance against Alex Pereira, but I definitely think he can knock out Pereira. I mean, not Pereira. I think he can knock out Prohaska. I think he can knock out Strickland. I think he can knock out the places. So yeah, a lot of these people that are relevant now, I think he in his prime, even we just kind of just again put him in time machine and put him in here now, take him from in the past. I think he could do well in this era with the current crop of people around his weight classes that were viable matches for him or would be viable matches for him. So yeah, I think the whole narrative of trying to just push these guys into like a pioneer division. Yes, they are pioneers, but I think their resumes and their accomplishments stack up with a lot of guys. And when you really look at his wins really are better than a lot of guys you would put in the top 6 through 10 or that currently sitting in a lot of people's top 6 through 10. Like more defenses, better names, really bigger wins even at the time than a lot of these guys that are sitting, in the 6 through 10 spots or even maybe like the 5 through 10 spot of current pound list. So I'm not saying he should be over them. I'm saying at the very least, he should be considered top 20 instead of people just kind of just like, he's old or he's from this era and just kind of just pushing the back or just refusing to even study the history. Like in other sports like boxing, people still be bringing Muhammad Ali up and his era was like 100 years ago, or bringing up Jack Johnson and other stuff, or Rocky Marciano and stuff in boxing. And where these guys are just like 20 years ago or really less than 20 years ago was their prime and people already like kind of sweeping them under the rug. So I don't think that's the best perception of these fighters, or in this case, Chuck Liddell. So as far as Chuck Liddell is rated, underrated. And that's the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos.